my fellow Americans. If you think you know politics, think again. I'm Michael Cohen, and every week on When You Know, we're pulling back the curtain on power, politics, media, and the people making headlines. On my new WABC radio show, you'll hear conversations from names that you know. People like Jerry Falwell Jr., Anthony Scaramucci, Alan Dershowitz, and many, many more. Maybe, just maybe, we'll even hear from the president. No scripts, no spin, just real conversations with people who were in the room where it happened. And trust me, we've got some very big surprises coming. Look, I've spent years at the center of politics, controversy, and power. I know the players, I know the stories, and now I'm bringing you inside. When You Know, Sundays at 5 p.m. on WABC Radio, and When You Know Unleashed, wherever you get your podcasts. Because with me, you never know who's going to show up.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me, taxi.
Okay, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
I am about to speak with General Jack Keane, retired General Jack Keane. He is the former Vice Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army. He is chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. He is a Fox News senior analyst. He is recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom. He's gotten the nation's highest civilian honor presented to him by President Trump at the White House. I mean, you've done just about everything but talk to me. So now it's the time, okay?
I look forward to it.
So tell me, General, when you started as a little boy, wherever it was, where did you live? Where did you grow up? What was your best subject in school?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm a born and raised New Yorker. So I grew up in Manhattan in city housing projects. The first one was Jacob Riis. It's still there. It's on East 10th Street and Avenue D.
Yeah, I know it.
And I went through 16 years of Catholic education. Yeah, so in school, mathematics, history, all of those were kind of strength. You know, Catholic education, it was a no-nonsense education. You had to buckle down. They kind of reinforced the values that your family had, in terms of discipline, attention to detail, getting the work done. No-nonsense approach to education.
Okay, but from no-nonsense education in Catholic school, there has to be some leap from that to become a general. What did I miss in between? Well,
Fordham had quite an impact on me. That's where the university I attended. They were about critical thinking and analyzing and using your mind. High school was about regurgitating information. You just had to give the professor or teacher back what they gave you. And when I was in Fordham, the core curriculum with philosophy, we had a minor in it, and their intellectual side of it pushed me quite a bit. I could no longer, I was shy and reserved, hide in the classroom, so to speak. And they would stand you up and ask you to interpret the reading, not tell them what it was about, analyze it, and then they would challenge you on it. And this was going on in every class, no matter what the class was. So that really broadened me quite a bit intellectually. But it was there that I joined the ROTC program as a freshman. And I quickly realized that I liked it, and I seemed to have an aptitude for it. So that just grew over time as I was at the university. And it was from there, the ROTC program, they commissioned me a second lieutenant, and I went to the 82nd Airborne Division. I spent my life as an infantry paratrooper pretty much throughout the almost 38 years of service. But that's where I got my start in the ROTC program at Fordham, and I'm indebted to them, not just for the military program. And by the way, they never shut their program down during the Vietnam War, given the student demonstrations that were taking place, but also for the education system the Jesuit fathers provided to me.
If it weren't the Army, what career might you have chosen?
I never really considered anything. I was in the business school thinking you have a core liberal arts curriculum in the Jesuit schools. But I was in the business school thinking I'd acquire the knowledge to go out into the business world and work. But the reality is, I got so associated with ROTC in my freshman year, and I continued to blossom and mature and grow, develop through it, that I never really considered anything, to be frank. When I was a sophomore, I pretty much made up my mind that I was going to go into the Army and see if what my inclinations were, that I could be of value and make a contribution and succeed in it. You don't know if you can really lead others until you get out there and truly do it. Leading, fellow cadets is one thing. Leading a platoon, a company of infantry paratroopers, some of them were very experienced and older than you, is quite something else.
Well, if not the Army, what other career might you have chosen? Would there have been something else in which you excelled? Because you were so special in what you chose, I wondered if there was anything else in which you were special.
Well, I wasn't thinking of it, but if I stayed in the business school and was not in ROTC, I think I likely would have got involved in business opportunities in New York, and it would have seen whether my leadership ability and organizational ability, would have grown there as fast as it did inside the military. I just don't know. I don't have that frame of reference. But I've been associated with a lot of business people while I was in the Army, and since then, certainly. And I have a great admiration and affection for many of them and the skills that they have in running complex organizations.
Well, let me get to the aggravations we're having today. The future of America in its 300th anniversary someday. Would you give us an assessment of where we're going?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think when I look at it from a foreign policy and national security perspective, I believe we are facing the most significant global security challenges we have faced since World War II. And that is because China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran are cooperating and collaborating together against the United States. This began during the Biden administration. And what they saw was weak U.S. leadership, which they believe exposed the United States in terms of its vulnerability and gave them opportunity. So it's not an isolated incident, Cindy, that in 22, Russia invades Ukraine, and he wants to use it as a platform to break the NATO alliance. And that was his goal, and he thought he could accomplish it in a few weeks. Well, here we're in the fifth year. He hasn't done that, but that was his goal. And two, less than a year later, in 23 in October, here we have Hamas, directed by Iran, Hamas and Hezbollah, attack Israel with one goal in mind: to destroy the state of Israel and drive the United States out of the region. That is not isolated. They saw weakness, and they thought they could take advantage. President Xi, during that same time frame, increases the intimidation and coercion, not just of Taiwan, but of most of our allies in the region on a scale we had not seen before. They were all collaborating, cooperating together because they saw opportunity to change the United States' dominant role in the world with other like-minded democratic countries, and wanted to shift it to their sphere of influence. Certainly they have national objectives, they have sphere of influence in their regions, but if they came together, they thought they could arm wrestle the United States and these democratic countries into a degree of weakness where they would achieve dominance. They are still about that. When President Trump came into power, I did have an opportunity to talk to him for 2 hours down in Mar-a-Lago, 4 days before the inauguration. And, we were sitting there talking about the world he's facing and what a mess he was taking over, to be quite frank about it. In terms of every region in the world, to include the Western Hemisphere, we were facing major, major problems. And the United States leadership had to step up to deal with that. And the president has attempted to do that in the Western Hemisphere, changing the tide there with Venezuela, certainly trying to find peace in Ukraine with Russia and Ukraine, and also certainly supporting Israel's effort against Iran full throttle, not half-baked like the previous administration would do, not holding weapons back, not telling them how to fight a war, not telling them they shouldn't fight Hezbollah, giving them full throttle support, not just in terms of weapons, but the wherewithal to win a war, and we're going to be there for you if you need us. And when they needed us, we showed up.
Okay. What would be the biggest national security for us right now if we're like in a plaid and everybody is against us with a different color? What basically is facing America today?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's the collaboration of these four countries that really is the major strategic threat that we're facing. And certainly, if you had a single one out as being more threatening than the other, certainly China would be that, because of the strength of their military, the strength of their economy, and the fact that they are a superpower in every sense of the world. Iran is clearly the most dangerous threat that we're facing because they've been so aggressive in the region. And, I think what President Trump is attempting to do here is actually reset the Middle East by taking Iran's aggression and predator nature of imposing their will in the Middle East for 47 years and resetting the Middle East by denuding them, so to speak, so that they no longer have the will or the capability to be that predator and that aggressor that has so influenced the destabilization of the Middle East for years. And that's why we've been there for multiple generations. It's largely radical Islam and Iran that has done that to us. And he sees the opportunity to reset the Middle East by challenging them and taking them on. Other presidents have waved their hand at this and walked away from it and just passed it on to the next generation. This president does not want to pass that on. So that danger is still there. We're obviously at war. We're in a ceasefire stage right now, but the goals and objectives are still there in terms of taking away Iran's aggression and their will to influence and destabilize the Middle East and reset it for the future with stability and an enduring peace. That strategic opportunity is still there.
Is the U.S. ready to go to war? Should we? Iran, Russia, China? Are we prepared? Can we actually survive this?
Yes, that's a great question. Well, yes, we are prepared to go to war, and you've just seen us demonstrate that dealing with the war with Iran. But obviously, they're not a power, at the same footing that we have. But what the United States military is attempting to do from post-World War II to the present is prevent war. And we succeeded at doing that with the Soviet Union. And the way to prevent a war is to be prepared, one, to fight it, and two, you have to demonstrate to your adversary that you have the will and the resolve to go to war, to deal with them. And two, you have to have the capability, and they have to see that capability as being real. This isn't about words. This is about military capability. Those two things together, the resolve to go to war and the capability to do it effectively, that provides credible deterrence. And that is what we are about every day. We have more work to do in terms of credible deterrence in the Indo-Pacific region. And the character of war that's changing on the battlefield in Ukraine is going to help us with that. And I'm talking about drones in the air, drones under the sea, drones on the surface of the sea, drones on the ground. It gives a defender an opportunity to actually stop a larger country with greater military capability. And you can see that being played out in Ukraine every single day. That is going to help our allies and partners in the Pacific, in addition to bringing forward much of our military capability into the region, increasing it. So China looks at that and says, this is in doubt whether we could succeed here or not. And that's what we achieved with the Soviet Union. They outgunned us and outmanned us in everything, just like China does with the United States. You name the platform except submarines, and China has more of it. That's the way the Soviet Union was. But we had enough credible capability there that they could see that would put their generals in doubt whether they could actually win that war. And that's how we were able to stop them from it going into Western Europe. That is what we're attempting to achieve in the Indo-Pacific region. President Trump and his team are all over it. They know this. That's why they need an increased defense budget. We need more capability, and we got to get it quickly and put some of it, not all of it, but some of it in the Indo-Pacific region.
Okay, you are a general, and we all know who you are. Our country is now fragile. Where do we stand? How do we survive our country, which is no longer one nation? How do we survive this with military, with killing our army, with being poor, with not getting enough jobs, with prices so high? How do we live through this?
Well, we've been here before. I have great faith in the American people, and what our founders did in stitching this together as the first democracy in the world and the most enduring democracy, obviously, in the world today, and very successful. And we passed it from one generation to another. I mean, my God, we went through a civil war ourselves. It was the highest percentage of deaths on the battlefield that ever existed up until that time. And we cleansed ourselves of all of that. We got through that, and leadership certainly helped, but also the strength of the American people and our values. We went through the Depression, and the country was impoverished, and we were brought to our knees. And then the greatest calamity in the history of man took place in World War II. We had 334,000 people in the United States military before the war broke out. We were an inferior military power and looked down upon by the European militaries and others in the world, even though we had done a pretty good job during World War I and deployed 60 divisions into that war. But the reality is we grew that to 12.2 million people under arms, which defeated Nazi Germany in Europe. We rescued Europe from the stranglehold that Germany had on them, and we defeated imperialist Japan. We did that. And not only did we do that, then we recovered the two great powers that started that war. And the American taxpayer underwrote the financial and economic recovery of Germany and Japan because we didn't want this to happen again. And we wanted to make certain that we could give rise to the people again, and they could elect people that they wanted to have in government as opposed to having dictators. I have great faith in the American people. And yes, we have political divisions in our country. We have been here before. The American people, they are wonderful in their collective wisdom, and they provide a correcting mechanism when our government needs it. And they have done this time and time again. I believe they likely did it in the most recent election, and they will do it again when the time is needed. So my faith is in the foundation that we have. We want to have a government that can administer services and do the right things to protect the American people, but we don't want it to be too strong. We want unlimited central government, and we want to have checks and balances in it. And that's a very healthy system that has brought us to 250 years. And we want to continue to empower the American people and treat them as the adults that they really are, and don't condescend, don't talk down to them. And some of our leaders obviously have a tendency to do things like that. But then the American people hold them accountable. So my faith is in the American people. And I've seen a lot of this generation. I've been around the world looking at our military. In the last 2 years, I've been on 5 exercises, seeing them out there. This is 19 to 22 mostly. This is the current generation led by older sergeants and officers. But you get to see the majority of the people and their attitudes and what do they care about America. And also, I give talks on college campuses as well. And you get to see young people out there. Now, some of them are very disturbing because they don't have a sense of our history and our American values and the founding fathers. And you've seen some of these demonstrations that make no sense, that have leanings towards Hamas, which is a terrorist organization designed to kill innocent people. That makes no sense in America. But I think a good thing is happening. We're going to relook our university system and see what's wrong with it, particularly our elite universities in terms of what are we teaching them? What are the values in these institutions? There's so many others that are not doing that. But my faith is in the American people. And this generation that's out there, I think they will get it right. We have passed this mantle from one generation to the other. We would not be as successful as we are today if the generations didn't pass the values, the discipline, the orientation on family, the orientation on believing in America and having some faith in it and willing to sacrifice for it. Okay. I think we're still there.
What would be your own toughest decision, your own toughest personal decision when you were in battle?
Yeah. Well, I have to think about that a little bit. When I was in Vietnam in combat, we were ambushing the enemy. They would come down trails at night, and we would set up an ambush to surprise them at night and take them out. And then one night, my rear security, I had a couple of people on rear security that watched, make sure nobody would come at us from the rear. While we had eliminated the enemy in what we call the kill zone, and we were on the trail, one of them threw a grenade into that position where we were. And I had wounded soldiers as a result of it. And then I realized that young soldier panicked. And he panicked because he probably didn't have confidence in what we were doing. Ooh. And I didn't dismiss him. But what I did do is we began to train on these ambushes, and then we ambushed, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 times every night after that to make certain that everybody had the confidence in what we were doing. And we got very, very successful at doing it. I don't want to get into the details of all of it, but coming to grips with failure, and then, well, what do you do about it? But understand why. Why did you have the failure? And in this case, I think it was the soldier's lack of confidence and fear that overtook him. So my problem was I've got to make certain all my soldiers have confidence in what we're doing, so that while we're all going to still have fear, we have confidence that we can execute and be disciplined enough to do it.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, that's one example.
Okay, I'm going to watch you on Fox TV from now on. I'll even go further than that. I'll even buy dinner. I haven't seen you in a while. I want to... Yeah. My lovely wife, Angela, and I would love to see you. That's a fact. Okay. Thank you for coming on. I think maybe we will be catching up very shortly, and I appreciate your coming on. Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, honey.
Right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Get ready, Staten Island.
The Ferry Hawks are back at SIUH Community Park July 7th to the 12th for a 6-game series against the High Point Rockers. Tonight, first pitch is at 6:30. It's Thirsty Thursday with $5 Bud and Bud Light Drafts. Friday, July 10th, first pitch is at 7 p.m. May the Force be with you on Star Wars Night with post-game kids glow around the bases with special lightsaber training packs.
Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats.